normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
This is a tweet that's been reposted by Libby Emmons. It is of Michael Rappaport, a man who utterly despises Donald Trump and still to this day despises Donald Trump. But this comedian, this man who hates Donald Trump, I'll say it again, has a message for all of you. Y'all ready to hear it?
If it comes down to pig dick Donald Trump and smoking Joe Biden, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Voting for pig dick Donald Trump is on the table.
Oh!
I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry. I'll still call him slob dick Donald Trump, pig dick Donald Trump, and all that. But we need to get this whole fucking situation under control.
And you know what that situation is he's talking about? He's talking about far leftists that are storming, trying to storm the DNC. Yeah. They're storming into, I think, a university a few hours ago. He's talking about the far left protesters in New York City cheering on Hamas. And I just think it's absolutely hilarious that this guy who hates Donald Trump, and I'm not going to speak to him as to what he said about January 6th, but the fact that so many people are moving in this direction, despite screaming that Donald Trump is a fascist, Hitlerian psychopath who tried to overthrow the U.S. government. They genuinely claimed that Donald Trump was a threat to this country. But then Israel got threatened. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't care about this country. I'll vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we get what we want over there, huh?
Kind of shows what his priorities are, but I'm just heartbroken.
I'll take it.
I'm heartbroken because this guy was in True Romance, which is one of my favorite movies ever, and he's now just like a caricature of himself.
Yeah, but look.
Sad.
So outside of that, I'll just say this. I don't want to rag on Rappaport. He's allowed to hate Donald Trump. That's totally fine. I don't know what he said about January 6th. I'd be willing to bet he said a lot of crazy things, critical things of Trump. Fine. If he's coming out now and saying, hey man, I'm starting to realize these far leftists are crazy, and this is what it took, I'll take what I can get. I'm not gonna push him away. Anybody who comes to me and says, I didn't realize the far left wanted to kill, let's just be very careful, supported Hamas, that to a great proportion supported Hamas. And we're posting images of paragliders coming into Israel. Very delicate here. They didn't know that. So be it. I will say, shake my hand, buddy. We're going to vote for Donald Trump together.
Right. Well, look, that's fair. But I don't look at Rappaport and his unhinged behavior over the past 4 years and go like this is an ally in any form or fashion. Yeah, he may vote for Trump. He might. But he's just as crazy as the people that are marching for Hamas.
But look. He can say whatever he wants. He can believe whatever he wants. But if we truly believe, and you probably don't, but I'm saying for me, that Donald Trump is our best path forward in 2024 for a variety of reasons. If this guy's saying he's gonna help me out with that, I say yes. Here's why I was talking to Scott Horton after the show. Great dude. We had him on Culture War. And I said, look, man, if I see Donald Trump and he's having a snowball fight with Hillary Clinton, and he's just whipping them at her, and she's getting hit, and she's about to be knocked off her balance into a nice snow pile. It's all good fun, everybody. It's all good fun.
Yes.
And then he runs out of snowballs, and he looks at me, and he goes, Tim, I need one more snowball. I'm going to throw him a snowball. If Michael Rappaport is the guy who's got it, I'll be like, let's go. And if he throws a snowball to Trump, and then Trump whips one last snowball, hitting Hillary, and she falls backwards into the snow, you get my point. I'm very nice, okay? We're having a very fun, family-friendly game of a snowball fight. And Hillary falls down, and then she giggles and laughs, and everyone's happy, but Trump wins. Yeah. That's my point.
Look, I've said before, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I don't disagree with you that he's probably the best bet at getting me any closer to what I want to see. But I just don't have any confidence in him because of what happened during 2020, and that's the reason I don't support him. But yeah, I think that obviously if it's Gavin Newsom, like I would be out of my mind not to prefer Trump over Newsom.
You gonna vote for him?
Probably not. Probably not. Well, I'll put it like this.
I'd vote for him.
I'll put it like this. Hold on. I'll put it like this. If I'm in a swing state, which currently I am, I'm in Florida.
Wait, are you joking?
Isn't it a swing state?
No.
Well, I mean, it went very hard for DeSantis, but it's been a swing state historically. So
not even for I think for Trump it was even better.
Okay, well then I don't. If my vote doesn't matter, I think then you know who I'm voting for. But if there's some theoretical possibility that my vote will actually swing things, then yeah, maybe I'd consider Trump. But look, I'm not. Look, you're putting me in a corner, Tim. Don't make me endorse this guy. No, I don't have to do this.
You don't have to endorse Trump. You can even outright say he's awful. But man, like I said, if Donald Trump is the one who's engaging in that snowball fight against the establishment machine and the war machine, I'm like, look, no new wars. That dude tried so hard to get us out of Syria. I'm just like, I was saying this to Dave Smith, not yesterday, but the last time I was here, I was like, come on, man. I know the drone strikes are bad. I know the bombing in Afghanistan was bad, but he set a timeline. There were no new wars. He tried getting our troops out of Syria. If I can take an inch from anybody back towards pulling our troops out, I will take it.
To your point there, like, and this is one of my frustrations with libertarians, is they're so frequently looking for purity. And if you look at the United States government and the U.S. empire, global empire with military bases in 120 or something countries around the world, the idea that you should throw away someone that is trying to pull back on the U.S. government, trying to actually make real cuts because they were unsuccessful, when literally you're going to have the most powerful government in all of human history working against you because that government has incentive to stop you from making cuts. So for libertarians to say things like, oh, that guy's total garbage because there were some wars, or there were still wars going on, or he didn't end all the wars. It's like, think about the task that you're demanding this person do immediately or within 4 years, with the amount of resistance that they're going to have to deal with.
Right.
It is outside of realistic to say this person was elected and they didn't undo 250 years of encroachment on your liberties and blah, blah, blah in 4 years. So they're all bad. That is ridiculous.
It's a bit of a straw man of my position, though.
No, I'm not saying it's you. I'm saying there are a lot of
libertarians like that. You're absolutely right. But here's the reality. He did not try to shrink the size of the government. He did try to end some unconstitutional illegal wars, and God bless him for that. But he also increased the size of the federal government significantly. And he stood by during the most catastrophic decision of any president in my lifetime in terms of domestic policy, which was the COVID lockdowns. And that is honest to God, if it weren't for 2020, I probably would have supported Donald Trump. I probably would have.
I think it's fair. I view it this way, like, the libertarian argument, you've got two guys who go back and forth whacking you with a stick. And then finally you get a guy who's like, no. He hit you 10 times. I'm going to hit you 8 times. So vote for me. And the reformist argument is just take the 8 whacks instead of the 10.
Right.
And then the libertarian argument is screw you all. I'm not playing your game. So I can respect that. I can. My attitude is just, I think the best, I choose the reformer position of, man, I know Trump is far from perfect, but he was a net positive, and that's all that matters.
Well, I think on domestic policy and changing the dialogue amongst the American people, he was largely a net positive. The issue is that for whatever reason, being a businessman myself, I don't understand why he doesn't understand Fed policy more, why he doesn't understand that his browbeating of, I don't know if it was Powell at the time, I think it was, but trying to drive down interest rates even lower, wanting to pass trillions of dollars in stimulus spending during the COVID era without votes, without roll call votes, trying to evict Massey, who's the greatest congressman of the past decade, out of power because he wanted to have a roll call vote to have people on record for a $3 trillion spending bill, which is something that historically we would have never even considered as being feasible. There's just a lot of behaviors from him that goes counter to this narrative that he is actually a small government guy.
No, he's a Democrat.
But that's not even my point, because I don't disagree with you. The only thing I would disagree with on is Massey. I would say Matt Gaetz, especially considering the fight with McCarthy.
Sure.
But, Massey is pretty great. I'm a big fan. Although, he very much supported McCarthy. We know that McCarthy behind the scenes was sabotaging people. And
I agree. And that's bizarre.
It's insane and brutal. But it really comes down to, for me, typically the most important thing is foreign policy. And my attitude has long been, this is just how I grow up, that the United States bickers amongst its own people about the things we deserve and the things we've done wrong, while everyone ignores the bombing, the humanitarian crises, the arming, the massacres. And this is why, it's kind of crazy to think it was Obama before Donald Trump. So we get Donald Trump and I'm like, what's going on? Things are actually kind of okay. Like, What do we have? What do we have with Barack Obama? Extrajudicial assassinations.
Yep.
How many weddings did he blow up?
A lot.
The expansion of Middle Eastern conflict. Syria. Look at Libya. These outright disasters.
Blew up
These
hospitals too.
blew up hospitals, no question. Donald Trump did better than Barack Obama
Yeah.
a million ways when it comes to foreign policy. Not perfect. A lot of bad things too.
No,
So for me, it's kind of like this. I've had friends who are like, we deserve health care. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about after we stop blowing up kids in Yemen and Pakistan.
Agreed.
And so when Donald Trump comes in and he's like, no new wars, timeline for getting our troops out, get our troops out of Syria, and we watch the deep state lie to the American people and Trump to keep troops in Syria. The only, like, I'll tell you, Trump should not have fired 59 Tomahawk missiles at Syria. That's the one time the press started praising him.
right. Or
But
the Moab. Yeah.
So I look at anything else, and my view really is, and y'all can disagree with me, by all means, spam in the chat ones. My attitude is, my priorities over my view of, say, like COVID lockdown stuff and Donald Trump's role in it is a much lower priority to the United States spending American taxpayer dollars, or what I should say is extracting our buying power in order to wage war in foreign countries. So when someone says, yeah, but Trump did this COVID thing, I'm like, you know what? I got to be honest. I'd be willing to accept penance in terms of some detriment to my quality of life if it means the U.S. stopped doing all of that. To be fair, the reality is the inverse. If the U.S. stops doing all that, in fact, there's quite a good argument our lives would improve.
I agree.
So
that's
I'll take Trump.
That's a really important point, because there's this kind of myth that I think that the American people have been sold, that in some way we have benefited. The average American has somehow benefited from the empire. It couldn't be further from the truth. Our purchasing power is declining very rapidly. All of the people that have actually benefited from it have been the worst corporations, if not in modern era, than maybe in all of human history. Some of the worst actors out there, the Boeings and all these other companies that are actually literally just profiting by the billions based off of death and destruction of innocent people. It's horrific. But there's this belief that, like, we have to police the world to kind of make it safe for the global economy. People don't consider the fact that all of these other nations have the same imperative. They have the same desire to have safe shipping lanes. There is no actual requirement that the American government be the policeman of the world. We ought to handle regional security. Russia and China ought to be handling their portions of the Pacific to keep it safe, and we ought to be handling ours. But that's not how it's been. It's been the American empire is expected to go and police everything, and it is absolutely bankrupting us.
Can I just want to point something out too, based on what I just said. I mean, I don't know if it's coincidental at all that 2019 we see the best numbers of our lives economically. I'm not talking about government spending and stuff. We can absolutely criticize all that, but unemployment is way down. Wage growth is improving. People are expressing this in polls at the same time that Donald Trump is actively working against the war machine. And I'm not saying I can definitively prove one for one that's what it's all about, but I would like to just live in that reality. So by all means, please knock me out of it. Prove to me that our economy doing well in this time frame and Donald Trump's positions on rejecting wars are totally unrelated, but I will accept it and I will roll that dice again.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump can recreate 2018 and 2019 and further those missions, it's there. And let him say all the naughty things, let him say all the nasty things. And all of my views on how bad 2020 was, I'm just like, if the end result is we go through a hard period, but 4 years later, our borders are more secure. Manufacturing has come back. We're no longer doing these insane trade deals with China. The American economy has dramatically improved, and the foreign wars have been whittled down. Right. The U.S., now our allies are actually paying their fair share as we pull our troops back because they shouldn't be in many of these countries. I mean, that is like a dream.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think that Donald Trump is a genie who can make it all just perfectly come true.
Right.
But we had a little taste of it in his first term,
and it wasn't so bad. I get the argument.
Good.
I totally get the argument that here's the issue. Because I come from the Austrian economics backdrop, and because I was a finance guy, I look at this and I look at the elevated inflationary pressure that we're dealing with nearing on $34 trillion in our national debt. You have all of the debt carry that's necessary for that debt that is ultimately going to really put a damper on growth, GDP broadly. I think that we're facing a very severe recession. The other thing that people aren't really privy to is that because of the elevated interest rate cycle, all of the long-term debt instruments that the banks filled their books with over the past couple of years when the interest rates were at record lows, those are now upside down to the tunes of billions and billions and billions of dollars. So you have a potential banking contagion coinciding perfectly with a potential national debt and fiat crisis. And then you also have the potential for a global recession. So the reason I bring all this up is to say, if you don't have someone who's in power soon, very, very soon, that is actually equipped to handle this, we're in a lot of trouble. And that's the primary reason that I can't give any sort of real endorsement for Donald Trump, is that he has not demonstrated a capacity to wrap his head around the severity of the situation that approaches us. And I feel like Vivek gets that. And that's the primary reason that if I had my druthers, Vivek over Trump all day.
Trump Ramaswamy 2024, would you vote for it?
Probably.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, there's
Probably.
no question.
Yeah.
I'd vote for Trump ham sandwich 2024.
Just because, obviously I would still rather a libertarian get in there. That's setting that aside. Because I understand how severe the financial situation is, and because everyone I know and love lives here, and I know that their retirement is on the line and their way of life is on the line, their safety and security is ultimately on the line with all of these potential fronts for World War III. It's super important that we get someone in there that is both non-interventionist but also a fiscal hawk. We need both of those things very, very soon. We cannot continue to wait for a hero, but we need real changes on the most important things. But
that's why it's a great argument to say support Vivek, and when it comes to Trump, accept Trump.
Yeah, well, and if Vivek is actually there to advise him, I would have a lot more faith in Donald Trump.
I hope and I beg and I pray that the very least, whatever happens, Vivek has some kind of advisory role with the Trump administration.
If he doesn't, it would be a huge miscalculation. In fact, it would demonstrate that Donald Trump hasn't learned anything from filling his cabinet with some of the worst war hawks on earth.
I'd still take it. I mean,
you're much more forgiving than me, Tim.
But it's not about forgiving. It's about
options.
Yeah.
I understand.
You could say Donald Trump is bad for all of these reasons, and I'll say, yep. And if it's no new wars, if dead stop in foreign invasion is all we get, that's 4 years I'll take.
Yeah, I would love to see, the good Dr. Ron Paul run again, and I'd love to see him win. I'd love to see anyone that's going to make significant cuts at the bureaucratic level. I'd love to see cabinet level positions totally abolished. But if all I can get is Donald Trump, then it's better than 4 more years of Biden or the actual problem.
The Biden DEI stuff too. That's even
it's
getting
a big deal.
It's a big problem. It's a
it is really tearing at the fabric of civilization.
Well, listen, not for nothing, but like all of the people that are pro-Palestine in the U.S., they're not pro-Palestine because they have an affinity for Islam.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.